The American Revolution was more than just a war. It was a defining moment that reshaped history. It led to the birth of the United States, a nation whose influence would reach every corner of the world. But did the Massachusetts Minutemen at Lexington and Concord realize they were firing the shots that would change everything? The revolution wasn't just about breaking free from Britain. It was a fight for liberty, representation, and self-governance, principles that would inspire democratic movements for centuries. Names like George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, and John Adams are now legendary, though they themselves could never have imagined the lasting power of their words and actions. The roots of revolution stretch back to the 7 Years' War, 1756 to 1763, when Britain's costly victory over France left it searching for ways to pay its debts. The solution? Taxing the American colonies. The Stamp Act of 1765, the Townshend Acts of 1767, and the infamous Tea Act of 1773 pushed tensions to the breaking point. Colonists, furious over taxation without representation, saw these acts as an unjust assertion of British control. Then, in 1770, British soldiers fired on a mob of protesters in what became known as the Boston Massacre. 3 years later, in an act of defiance, Patriots dumped 342 chests of tea into Boston Harbor, triggering a wave of British crackdowns. With tensions boiling over, representatives from the colonies met in 1774 at the First Continental Congress, demanding basic rights such as life, liberty, and property. But Britain's continued military presence in the colonies only made things worse. By April 1775, the inevitable happened. British soldiers marched toward Concord to seize a weapons stockpile, only to be met by colonial militia at Lexington. The first shots of the Revolutionary War had been fired. In the summer of 1775, the Second Continental Congress convened, now fully committed to resistance. They established the Continental Army, with George Washington as its commander, setting the stage for full-scale war. The war saw both victories and defeats for the colonists. Early battles like Bunker Hill in 1775 proved their resilience, while the adoption of the Declaration of Independence on July 4, 1776, made their intentions clear. Written primarily by Thomas Jefferson, the document boldly declared that all men were created equal and had the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. However, the British were far from giving up. In response, they sent a massive fleet carrying 34,000 soldiers to crush the rebellion. What followed was years of intense warfare, marked by retreats, betrayals, and hard-fought victories. The tide turned at the Battle of Saratoga in 1777, convincing France to join the war on the American side. With their support, Washington's forces gained the strength needed to stand against Britain. After years of struggle, the decisive moment came in 1781 at Yorktown. With British General Cornwallis trapped, Washington and his allies forced his surrender. Though it took 2 more years for the war to officially end, the Treaty of Paris in 1783 marked Britain's formal recognition of American independence. The revolution had been won. The United States, once a weak collection of colonies, had now become a nation destined for greatness. The ideals enshrined in the Declaration of Independence and the U.S. Constitution would shape the future, influencing democratic movements worldwide. The American Revolution was more than just a military victory. It was a triumph of new ideas over old systems, a defining chapter in the story of human freedom.